Sure, land's the basis of all power. See, and people hold on to their land. MC had to smile. Land was just like anything else you could lose. He thought of Jones. Power won't be the reason some people hold on to it. But he said nothing. I'd like to have me some land someday, she went on. Something like this. Maybe with some water on it. She didn't notice he kept on smiling at her. She seemed to have forgotten about her knife and any need for it. She had moved closer to the lake where the dark gleam of it reached her eyes. She watched the kids, whose games caused huge splashes. The lake rippled with ever-widening rings. Her eyes widened with the wonder of it. Very slowly, MC came nearer, but she was intent on the lake. You weren't around here yesterday, he said. I know because Macy and the boys were swimming, and they would have said so. Vaguely, she looked at him and then turned back to the lake. I followed them over here, she said, and when they left, I moved my stuff up over. You know, she said, animals come up to the water all in the night. They scared me to death, but then I got up my nerve. I crawled right up in the tent opening, didn't move a muscle, and I saw this deer drinking. It was just there, and then it was gone, and I didn't see it leave either. MC nodded, remembering the doe he and Benina had flushed from the thicket. They'll do that, he said. Deer will catch a scent of you. He moves so fast you can blink and he's gone. I'd love to live right here on the lake, she said, without one camper to hang the flag and break out the beer. I'm Pisces. I love water. You want to swim? He asked her, standing on one foot and then the other. The water is not so cold now. She frowned. I like a diving board. Anyhow, I misplaced my bathing suit. Just wear some cut-off jeans, he said. Shorts, if you have them. Nobody's going to mind. You can dive from the rocks down there where the beach ends. I have shorts, she said. She stared solemnly at the water. I have all kinds of things with me for any event. But I'm all out of Band-Aids. She looked at him hard. I need one for that cut on my back. Let me take a look at it, he said, before he thought. There was an awkward silence until she said, It's just a little cut. I'm sorry, MC mumbled. Louder, he said, The water's fine this morning. In an instant he had plunged into the lake to begin a perfect breaststroke. In water, all of the awkwardness of a youth standing on land left him. With his knowledge and skill in it, he made so unnecessary move. His powerful arm shot upward, then outward and rearward, as he cut through the lake like some bold sea creature. His back turned gold from the sun glistening on it. Hemmed in by the mountains, surrounded by tall pines, the dark surge of the lake was magical. Fascinated, the girl watched it and the way MC cut through it until she could no longer resist. She backed away, turned, and disappeared into her tent. When she came out again, MC and the children were down at the far end of the lake. She wore wrinkled pink shorts and a faded man's shirt, with sleeves cut away. She had tied the shirt tails in a knot at her waist. MC thought she was about as nice-looking as she could be, but rather than strike out into the water from where she was, she came around the shore. Come on in, they shouted to her. She preferred to walk down to the end of the beach. There she leaned on the rocks and plunged a foot in the water. That's cold, she said, looking pleased that they had invited her. Not underneath, Macy said, just on top. You get in and it's real warm. MC said something to his brothers and then, Don't let Macy, I'm going through. Head first, he upended himself and vanished beneath the surface. The water grew still again as if he had never been there. Macy rode on Harper's back until he grabbed the rocks and shook her off. Once he had climbed up on them, he gave Macy a hand. Lenny Poole followed. The girl watched the water, but it remained smooth and dark. What's your name? Macy said, curious all of a sudden. The girl smiled at Macy, but then her eyes flicked back to the lake where MC had gone under. She began to walk back and forth, her hands on her hips. The children watched her. What's he doing down there? She asked them. They said nothing. I don't think he's coming up. You'd better do something. Macy broke their silence with a giggle. He's not even down there, she said, just over and behind these rocks. She led the way around the edge of the rocks. Harper and Lenny went too, and cautiously the girl followed. On the other side lay a surprise. It was an opening in the rocks. No one who didn't know would suspect it was there. The rocks fell back in a small clearing where there was a silent pool with grassy banks. The children stopped at the edge. Macy turned brightly to the girl and smiled. MC surged up from the center of the pool in a great splash. He sucked in air as though he would never again get enough of it, as the girl covered her mouth to stifle a scream. The kids laughed at her. "It's a water tunnel," Harper told her in his soft, urgent voice. He told how the tunnel went under the rocks beneath the water at the edge of the lake and ended at the pool. "Only MC can travel it," Macy said. "We ain't allowed. The kids from town don't even know there's a tunnel." "You wouldn't know it either if you hadn't caught me doing it once," MC said. "Better keep the sense never to try it, too." "How do you hold your breath so long?" The girl talking to MC as though he were older, showing respect for him now. He pulled himself up on the grassy bank and wiped water out of his eyes. He had to smile. She kneeled next to him, her fear of him and the children gone. Proud he had done something she never expected he could do, and she had come from somewhere by herself in a car. But he could be by himself, too. He could travel through water like nobody. First, he thought of lying, to tell her he could hold his breath longer than anyone. The kids would know. Finally, he said, "It's not so long. I came up before you all ever got here. Hear you coming, and I just went under and waited. Then I splashed up like I was out of breath." She didn't seem to mind he had played a trick. "It's dark in the tunnel?" she asked him, her face so close he could see tiny bumps he hadn't noticed before. Shyly, he looked at his feet hanging in the water. "It's gray light, kind of," he said. "This pool is at the end of the tunnel. Sunlight drifts in and gets faded, I guess, but I see a little. It's ghostly, though, when fishes slide over your skin." She cringed with the picture of it. Watching her, Macy shivered with delight. His eyes on the pool, MC sensed the girl watching him, felt himself reaching out for her, the way he often reached out when he sat next to Jones. His skin itched and came alive with little things he seemed to know about her. She might travel alone, but every minute she was scared being by herself. The impression came to him, swift and certain. Already he felt attuned to the girl, less self-conscious at having her so near. He rubbed his arms and neck until the itching went away. Tiredness settled in the knot on his forehead in a dull ache that came and went. He wasn't feeling quite himself this morning, yet he didn't want to go and leave her. "What's your name?" he asked. She shrugged. "No use of saying names." "I told you our names," he said. "I could tell you a name you wouldn't know if it was really mine." "Where do you come from, then?" "Same thing," she said. "You wouldn't know if I came from where I said. Then why not tell?" She said nothing. She looked at him and quickly away, as if she wanted to speak out but couldn't. Soon she was looking from the pool to the rocks and back to the pool. She did this several times before it came to MC what was on her mind. "A water tunnel won't be like a pool," he told her, "or even a lake." She nodded, staring at the rocks. "A pool or even a lake is simple. Water will lift you," he said. She sat still with just her head turning to look at him and then away. "But tunnel is a bottleneck. No place to take off the pressure, or maybe pressure's not the trouble. It's just a tight place without a top, and you can get sick to your stomach." A long silence in which she said nothing. "How long can you hold your breath?" MC asked her. "What?"